Good wishes to all of you. Essential Sociology for UPSC, Sociology Optional, System of Kinship audiobook. System of Kinship. Chapter takeaways. Know about the system of kinship and role. Explain the role and functions of family and kin in society. Know about the concepts of marriage. Lineage and descent. Understand sexual divisions of labor and working of home, patriarchy in society. All of us are born into one or another kind of a family, and most of us continue to choose to stay in a family during our lifetimes. It makes the family a universal social institution. Despite the changing forms and structures, family has stood the test of time. It is a cradle of socialization and social learning where formative human personalities are shaped into social beings. Existence of kin and extended family members play many functional roles in society. Kinship holds a central place in sociological analysis because humans are sentient beings require emotional, physical, and psychological support, which only other human beings like kin can provide. Despite being of such an indispensable nature, some thinkers have suggested that family as an institution creates barriers for individual liberty and promotes many undesirable values such as patriarchy. Kinship refers to a system of social organizations based on real or putative family ties. The definitions and scope of family and kinship are culture specific. In such real or putative ties, a set of persons are recognized as relatives either by virtue of a blood relationship, technically called a consanguinity. Blood relationship, technically called consanguinity, or by virtue of a marriage relationship that is through what is called affinal or conjugal relationship. Blood relationship, technically called consanguinity, and virtue of a marriage relationship through what is called affinal or conjugal relationship. Nowadays, relationships based on adoption and places are also included in this category. Apart from consanguineal and conjugal kin, there can be fictive or putative kin also. Fictive kin are especially sorry fictive kin are specially observed in societies where mechanical solidarity is higher, for example, in rural societies. Such fictive or putative kinship bonds are non marriage and non blood based and are results of individual preferences as a result of friendships, religious obligations, etc. We find evidence of such a practice in many tribal and village studies. In his study of Shamirpet, Asidube found that unrelated individuals behave like brothers. Raymond Firth, in his two studies of kinship in London, 1956, made a further distinction in terms of effective kin and non effective kin based upon the extent of regular contact between kinship members. According to Harry Johnson, kinship has five important elements: sex or conjugal relations, generation, intimacy, blood bonds, and lineage. Relationship between husband and wife is an example of conjugal relations. The relationship between father and daughter embodies elements of generation. Intimacy is a hallmark of closer relations like that of husband and wife. Kinship ties are deeper and more extensive in traditional societies as society puts high premium on such ties. Kinship grounds perform various functions in traditional societies which make them even more significant. Various institutions which come under the ambit of kinship are family, marriage, lineage, descent, gotra, kula, etc. Kinship relations are important because they perform several functions for individuals and society as well. Often rights and obligations are decided on the basis of these relations. System of production, consumption and authority is also governed through kinship, especially among traditional groups like tribes. Kinship relations also lay down marriage taboos. Kinship relations are also important in terms of performance of various rites that one has to perform during his or her course of life. So, kinship is an important facet of social life. Its role in society is ever changing. In modern societies, the importance of kinship has diluted with economic and social changes in society. Factors like nuclear family, individualization, migration, urbanization, women empowerment, rise of alternative institutions, etc., have changed the qualitative nature of kinship relations. Family. Family is the building block of society. It is the primary unit of socialization where, according to Mead, the foundation of human personality is laid. In the simplest terms, family is a social unit. Household is a brick and mortar dwelling unit where a family may live. Marriage is a union of two or more in case of polygamy adults. Family, household, and marriage are the basic units of society and form the basic building blocks of the architectures of social organization. Humans are differentiated from other animals because of their ability to marry and form a family which often lives in the same household and organize a major part of their social life around this. Features of family as a social institution. Some sociological and anthropological views on family regard it as a result of an evolutionary process. Family was perhaps not a social unit when man was not a social animal in true sense. During that time, according to some early socialists like Morgan and Fraser, man lived in the wild like other animals and exhibited promiscuous behavior. As social relations stabilized, family started to take a concrete shape. This theory was based upon observation of some communities which exist even today and exhibit such promiscuous behavior. Such an evolutionary view of family now stands largely rejected as it bases itself on some narrow behavior markers like promiscuity. Classical definitions define family as a small, cohesive social group based on marriage, emotional bonds, common residence, blood relations, and stipulation of domestic services. It has also been defined as a group based on martial obligations, rights and duties of parenthood, common habitation, and reciprocal relations between spouses, parents, and children. Irrespective of agreements and disagreements that various socialists have on various definitions of family, almost all of them agree that family is the cornerstone of the society. According to the functionalists like George Peter Murdoch, who studied more than 250 societies, both traditional and industrial, in his social structure, 1949. Family is a universal social institution as it existed in all kinds of societies from hunting gathering to industrial societies. George Peter Murdoch defined family as the family is a group, a social group characterized by common residence, economic cooperation, and reproduction. It includes adults of both sexes, at least two of whom maintain a socially approved sexual relationship, and one or more children, owned or adopted, of the sexually cohabiting adults. This definition may be contested today on various grounds, but it gives a basic idea about family. Different definitions add different dimensions to family, and in a nutshell, a family is a primary social institution consisting of some adults, their reproductive relationship, their children, emotional bonds between them, relations between them, consanguineal and affinal, household, economic cooperation, and so on. Due to various changes in structure and functions of family, it is argued that classical definitions are no longer valid as family today is not limited by adults of opposite sexes, as in the case of gay or lesbian marriages, and may not perform the function of reproduction. Its many other traditional functions, for example, production and regulatory related functions, are also overtaken by bureaucratic organizations. Like ever and Pace define family in terms of various attributes, that is universal, effective base, unit of production, socialization, limited size, regulatory function. The family, unlike other social institutions, enjoys a unique position in society. McKever and Page have enumerated various distinctive features of family. Universality. Families found in all hitherto exciting societies, modern or traditional. Effective basis. Family provides emotional basis for the existence of members. In times of difficulty, it provides emotional support. Limited size. Family is the smallest social unit or kin group. It is the smallest entity in the larger social network of which an individual is part of. Socialization. In the social structure, family occupies a key position as a cornerstone of socialization as primary socialization of children happens within family. Responsibilities and unit of production. Members of a family have certain obligations and responsibilities as per their socio culturally defined roles. Social regulation. Family lays down values that the members are supposed to follow in terms of stated and unstated regulations and rules of cohabitation. Theoretical perspectives on functional utility of family. Despite various types of changes that family has undergone over the years, its existence as a universal social institution has remained unaffected. Despite profound changes in society, it continues to remain part of all known societies. Attempts to develop alternative institutions have not been so successful, primarily because family performs various essential functions in society which alternate structure cannot perform with equal efficiency. George Murdoch enlisted four universal functions which serve to resolve four major problems of society: regulating sexual relations, controlling reproduction, accounting for economic survival, and socialization of children. Similarly, Ogborn and Nimkov stated that the basic functions of a family are affectional, economic, recreation, protective, and educational. Basic and irreducible functions of family. Parsons asserted that the family performs mainly two basic and irreducible functions. Primary socialization of children and stabilization of adult personalities are these functions. Primary socialization is the process in which children learn the norms of the society in which they are born, and this process happens in early years. On the other hand, marriage is the mode of stabilization of adult personalities. His families as factories producing human personalities. Once produced, they must be kept stable through marriage, relationships, and emotional security. According to Parsons, modern families are isolated nuclear families and they evolved as a requirement of industrialization in society as there is a functional relationship between the family and economic system of the society. Isolated nuclear family provides for better geographical mobility in an industrialized society as it is structurally isolated and it does not form an integral part of a wider system of kinship relations. Parsons is criticized for taking an over harmonious view of family and is accused of suffering from patriarchal bias. His conception of isolated nuclear family as the sole type of family in modern society is also not true. Ronald Fletcher, in his Family and Marriage in Britain, 1966, argued that functions of family have not decreased significantly as a result of industrialization. Parents' responsibility towards their children has now increased. They have to play a decisive role in guiding, encouraging, and supporting their children. With increasing scope of social life, health, physical education, media, etc., the role of parents has in fact increased. Functions of family can be viewed in terms of latent and manifest functions also. Manifest functions are those which are performed for the family members themselves, which while latent functions are those which are performed for the society as a whole. Among various manifest functions, family provides emotional support in modern society where other kinship bonds are not so strong. Parsons refer to it as personality stabilization. Family also provides for physical security of the young ones and the older ones. Family provides financial security and economic placement in traditional societies. For example, individuals often take family business as a means to economic security. Family provides for sexual gratification by means of marriage and provides for regulation of sexual behavior. Family provides for early learning to individuals and imparts life skills in individuals. Family also provides in entertainment functions as members vent their emotions, engage in mundane transactions. Family also provides for social status and identity to individuals. Latent functions, socialization, social control, culture. Manifest functions, security, sexual, social status. Family is a functional unit not only for its members but for larger society also. Apart from manifest functions, family also provides for social or macro latent functions. The foremost latent function of a family for the society is that of reproduction, as it keeps the society alive. It performs the function of member replacement in society and of its physical maintenance. Family performs the function of cultural transmission. Values of society are transmitted during the process of upbringing. Family facilitates primary socialization of children. According to Parsons, it is one of the basic and irreducible functions of the family. Family is also a mechanism of social control. Various sanctions, rules, and punishment given to family members ensure that they adhere to the accepted social norms. Family provides for the physical and emotional care of the old and the disabled. Family has also functioned as a unit of economic production. Until recent times, the family was an important unit of both production and consumption. The functional view on family has met with alternative perspectives also. Today, many of the traditional functions, at least the secondary functions of the family, are carried out by modern bureaucratic institutions like schools, old age homes, hospitals, play schools, etc. Frederick Engels offered one of the earliest Marxist perspectives on family in this The Origin of Family. Private Property and the State, 1884, and he took a materialistic evolutionary view of family. According to him, in primitive communal mode of production, family did not exist and humans exhibited promiscuous behavior. As mode of production matured, limitations were put on sexual relations and modern family emerged gradually. Monogamous nuclear family arrived with the arrival of private property as it emerged as an effective solution for the protection of private property via inheritance. The feminists provide another perspective and they view family in terms of unequal power relationships. They highlight the economic worth of the unpaid labor of the women in household chores. According to Fran Ansley, women also provide emotional support to the frustrated males in a capitalist system. Some socialists have also highlighted dysfunctions of family. Morgan, in his Social Theory and the Family, 1975 stated that family is depicted as a remarkably harmonious social institution. In reality, it may not be so. Some Marxist scholars say that it breeds notions of conformity. According to David Cooper, in his Death of Family 1972, it is an ideological condition devised in an exploitative society. He also contends that family denies individual freedom and is a hindrance in the development of an individual's self. Edmund Leach, in his A Runaway World 1967, argued that the modern family is isolated from larger society and kin and is a storehouse of stress and tension. Parents and children huddled together in their loneliness take too much out of each other. Parents fight, children rebel. Feminists like Margaret Benston were of the view that family perpetuates, perpetuates unpaid labor and also legitimizes violence. According to Murray Strauss, marriage license is a hitting license. Family legitimizes sexual abuse and violence. Norman Bell, in his article titled The Emotionally Disturbed Child as the Family Scapegoat, 1968, concluded that family is dysfunctional for children as parents use them as a scapegoat to vent out their tensions. Functions of family change with changing times due to various factors like nuclearization, industrialization, rise of bureaucratic institutions, and so on. Family is no longer the primary institution to enforce social control. With the rise of the modern welfare state, social control is now lying in the hands of law and order maintaining institutions. Ronald Fletcher calls family a multifunctional social institution. But today, its secondary functions are performed by bureaucratic organizations. Today, family no longer performs the production functions and it no longer plays the role of economic placement of an individual in society. Modern division of labor has facilitated numerous avenues of employment. Concept of old age home is also leading to the transfer of old age care functions to formal institutions. Almost all socialists would agree that functions of family have changed, but all may not agree that they have reduced altogether. Ronald Fletcher argued that many functions of family have expanded despite the growth of bureaucratic institutions. For example, with the growth of schools, parents have to put in even more effort to keep up with the modern education.
Structural aspects of modern family. Apart from its functions, family is also understood in terms of its structure. It means composition and relationships in kinship terms, that is, persisting patterns of relations which form the basis of kinship organization. Structural studies are concerned with the size of family and its organization in terms of roles, power, and authority. The structure of family can be studied both as a social institution in itself and also in its relationship to other social institutions of society. In itself, a family can be defined as nuclear or extended at the most basic level. In terms of authority structure, it can be male headed or female headed on the basis of line of descent. It can be matrilineal or patrilineal. The internal structure of family is usually related to other structures of society, namely political, economic, cultural, etc. For example, the migration of men in search of better economic opportunities from the villages of Bihar to northern states of India or from Kerala to Gulf countries can lead to an unusual proportion of women headed families in these states. Work schedules of young parents in the software industry in India may lead to an increasing number of grandparents moving in as caregivers to young grandchildren. The composition of family and its structure thereby changes, and these changes can be understood in relation to other changes in society. Traditional family structure has the following features. Size. On the basis of size, there are three predominant structural classification of family, that is nuclear family, joint family, and extended family. Extended family is like a collectivity of several nuclear families and it may be vertically or horizontally expanded. Joint family may be considered a particular type of extended family. There is a general conception that extended and joint families are a feature of traditional families, while nuclear families are a feature of industrial societies. Various empirical studies now suggest that extended family was never a universal feature of traditional societies, and the argument that industrialization led to the formation of the nuclear family is also not completely true. Authority relationships. Within a family, some members have more authority than others. On the basis of authority, whether males or females have more authority, there can be two types of family structures: patriarchal and matriarchal families. Dominant form is a patriarchal form in which males exercise more authority. In a traditional Hindu family, the eldest male having formal authority in the family is called Karta. Karta. In a family, according to Parsons, males have instrumental authority, while females enjoy emotional or affective authority. Today, such stereotypical conceptions of authority are not universally accepted even by sociologists. Structure of family, state and polity, tradition and rituals, economic architecture, cultural institution, social systems, values and morality. Those are outlined. Power and authority, martial relations, sibling bonds, lineage and descent, division of labor, member roles. These are internal things. Structural aspects of family include authority aspects, roles, sexual division of labor, and so on and their interlinkages with wider social structures. Kinship bonds in traditional families, conjugal bonds are strong but are often subordinate to consanguineal bonds. Filial bonds are stronger among all other forms of consanguineal bonds as there is limited interaction in case of parent and child. Mother child bond is, however, stronger. As the basis of formation of family changes, the qualitative nature of the kinship bond also changes. For example, with the advent of love marriages, conjugal bonds are gaining primacy and display of affection between the spouses is not a taboo in even traditional societies. Descent on the basis of descent. We can have matrilineal and patrilineal family structures in India and even globally. Patrilineal descent is the most common form of the descent based structures. However, in some parts of Kerala and in northeast India, there are examples of matrilineal structure as well. Seniority, it is a source of authority as well as respect. Societies which are divided on the basis of age, sex, age factor is a primary factor in deciding the division of power within the family structure. Some of the African tribes follow this type of familial organization. Even in India, the older members command more respect and authority as compared to the younger members. Division of labor in most families, division of labor is generally sex based and patriarchal sexual division of labor is the most prevalent form of division of labor. Household works are branded as household works are branded as feminine and masculine. Washing utensils is not so masculine a job in most of the families in India. Advances in education, modernization of society, etc., are now breaking traditional forms of division of labor. Rules of relations, various rules like incest taboo, women rearing children, etc., get the kinship relations. These rules vary from society to society. For example, while cousin marriage is a taboo in most of northern India, it is not among various tribes. So parts of southern um, northeast India. Ownership patterns. Ownership of property in traditional joint families is with adult males and despite equal legal property rights in countries like India, succession line is generally patrilineal. The symmetrical family. Michael Young and Pierre Wilmot, in their 2 decade long study of London families, concluded that family has undergone evolution in 3 stages: the pre industrial family, the early industrial family, and the symmetrical family. Pre industrial families had an equitable division of labor, and every member participated in almost all the chores. So, the pre industrial family was also a symmetrical family. Early industrial families were different as men started to engage in industrial work and women took to the house chores. Symmetrical family is the third stage and is largely a self-reliant and self-contained unit. Martial bonds are stronger and based on compassion. In this type of family too, the husband-wife roles are not totally symmetrical and sexual division of work still remains, but husband and wife significantly share each other's burden. Increase in male income, mobility, lower male mortality, lesser children, etc. led to the evolution of this form. Increase in female labor force participation, legislation impacts on gender, personal law reforms. International migration, advances in science and technology, including new reproductive technologies, among others, have impacted family structure and functions. Relationships between husband and wife today are based more on cooperation rather than domination, and women are also playing an increasing role in decision making. According to Parsons, nuclearization has strengthened the conjugal bonds between husband and wife. Young and Wilmot, in their The Symmetrical Family. 1975 saw family in terms of its evolution in 4 stages from pre industrialization to the current form. Today, symmetrical relations is a hallmark of husband and wife relations in modern family, and husband wife relations are based on companionship. In a more recent study by Goran Derbon by title Between Sex and Power 2004, it is argued that patriarchal power within family has generally declined over the 20th century. According to him, events like World War I, the Russian Revolution, etc., led to the joining of women to the workforce. As the principles like egalitarianism gained a currency, new developments like feminist movements of 1970s, etc., altered the gender profiles and hence family structures. Social psychologist Orwell Maurer argued that children's role in decision making is increasing and families are now rather becoming philiocentric. Unlike traditional families, in modern families, both parents now play instrumental and emotional roles. Parisian hypothesis appears less valid today as gender stereotypes are taking a hit with the social and legal reforms. It is no longer an oddity for a father to display affection for kids. Sibling bonds and relations are now based on fellowship and equality. Cultural notions attached with the roles of brother and sisters are weakening under the modernizing influence. While modernizing forces have a salutary effect on kinship relations, they sometimes produce strain also. According to Duncan Fletcher, people today expect more out of martial relations and or are more likely to end a relationship which would have survived in the past. Edmund Leach says that emotional stress and tensions are so great in modern life that family often fails to bear it and conjugal bonds become fragile. In industrial society, due to the rise of functional alternatives, families perform fewer functions and hence there are fewer bonds to unite. Nikki Hart says that there are more opportunities to escape today. According to her, this is best exemplified by the enactment of new divorce law in the USA in 1971, which led to a spurt in divorce cases. Individualism and achievement orientation have altered the authority structures within family. Authority of the aged members in the family is decreasing. There is a general rise of traditionally non-institutionalized features like live in single parent family, etc. Living single parent family, etc. Across the globe and in India also, such family structures are gaining more acceptability. Family is no longer the classically understood institution comprising individuals of both the sexes. Acceptance of same-sex relationship has upset the traditional definitions of family. Denmark was the first country to legalize gay marriages. In India too, the Supreme Court has taken steps to decriminalize homosexuality and in a 2018 judgment, it decriminalized same-sex relations. There are various factors which have led to change in structural and functions of a family as a social institution. Industrialization is one of the biggest factors as it requires geographically mobile families, and a new mode of production promoted achievement based status. It led to strengthening of conjugal bonds. Free selection of spouses has introduced a romantic element in family, and this has also altered the nature of conjugal bonds. New legislation has improved the status of women and children. Women now have more rights. Individuals are now freer to move separately. Polygamy is now participated lesser due to legal restraint on it in most of the countries. In India, Hindu Marriage Act 1955 banned polygamy among Hindus and it also gives right of divorce to both spouses. Neo-local trend is replacing patrilocal patterns. Working couples have to move to new places where their jobs are located. It has also altered their relations with the traditional joint family. Individualization and fluidity in relations has led to less durable bonding. Jayant Bauman, in his Liquid Love 2003, argued that modern life is characterized by constant change and lack of lasting bondings. bonds. Women are now more educated and well informed than ever before. They are now actively resisting the compulsions and atrocities of a joint up patriarchal family and are demanding equality of status in the household. Urbanization, occupational compulsions, and a larger number of avenues of mobility, both occupational and geographical, have altered the structure of a joint family. A single house becomes insufficient to accommodate all members of the family, and members move to new households as the original household cannot cater to demands of multiple married couples. This phenomenon has also been explained in the form of a cycle of jointness and nuclearization. Decline of religious control has also altered structure and functions of family as marriage and family as institutions are no longer as sacramental as they used to be. As members start questioning the prescribed rules, the functional character of the family changes. Social networking, cinema and traditional media has affected families in a profound manner. Concept of romantic marriages has gained much traction in recent times with the growth of liberal and individual centric ideas. Family planning drives and rhetoric like "हम do हमारे do हम do हमारे do" has influenced the idea of family in the past and present. The Chinese one-child policy is a case in point where state directives can affect family structures. As a measure of population control, governments actively discourage large families. In many government schemes, the financial and other benefits are not extended to the third child. For example, maternity leave is not provided for the third child in India is most public services. In most public services.
According to Lakshmi Narayana, land reforms in India imposed ceiling restrictions on the land holdings, and in many cases, the heads of the family resorted to theoretical partition to save their lands from land ceiling legislations. But it sowed the seeds for separate living. Imbalanced urban rural growth has led to higher migration of young members to cities. According to Wilhelm Bolsch, the money economy has also contributed to the reduction of family size as there is constant negotiation between limited resources and unlimited desires of members. In many Western countries, industrialization, migration, and modernization dictated size and form of family. But in India, cultural institutions like religion, caste, etc., still play an important role. Some sociologists argue that family is no longer a cornerstone of society as of 2022. Some countries like the Netherlands have as high as 38% of total households as single member households and another 29% multi person households with no children. Examples of alternative institutions like kibbutz in Israel also raise question over the universal existence of family. Some sociologists argue that with the breakdown of traditional concept of family, sociologists should instead make household as a basic unit of analysis as household remains a unit of cohabitation despite changing forms of family. Types and forms of family. Many sociologists have regarded family as the bedrock of society, but its composition varies from society to society based upon various socio cultural factors. Various commonly classified forms of family are on the basis of residence, matrilocal, patrilocal, geolocal, and neolocal are four broadly classified forms on the basis of residence of the married couple. In matrilocal, the newly wed couples lived at the bride's place. This kind of practice is prevalent among some matriarchal families of northeastern India, especially in Meghalaya. On the basis of authority, matriarchal and patriarchal are the basic types of family on the basis of authority. There are some isolated examples of matriarchal families, but true matriarchal forms are rare. Even in the purportedly matriarchal societies, males often have considerable authority on the basis of descent and rules of inheritance. Matrilineal, patrilineal, and ambilineal are three basic forms of the descent based forms of family. The most common of them is patrilineal followed by matrilineal.
In patrilineal form, inheritance of assets and nomenclature is passed on the line of males. For example, children take the surname of their father in patrilineal forms of family.
Marriage, monogamy, polyandry, and polygamy are the three forms. Incidents of polygamous marriages are declining over the years for various reasons, including modernization, legal reforms, and so on. On the basis of household size, joint household, nuclear household, single person household, institutional household, and so on are some of the commonly observed classifications based on the household or the dwelling unit. On the basis of size of family itself, nuclear family, sometimes the term conjugal family is also used for nuclear family, and extended family are the two broadest types. Nuclear family includes husband, wife, and other and their offspring. When other members also become part of this family, it becomes an extended family. A joint family is a particular type of extended family. On the basis of membership type, yet another distinction is made between the conjugal family or family by marriage and consanguine family or family by blood. There can be various other bases of membership based classification. For example, the family in which one is born as a child is the family of orientation, and the family in which one is a parent is the family of procreation. Isolated nuclear family of Parsons. Talcott Parsons in his The Social Structure of Family 1959, which was a study of American families, concluded that isolated nuclear family is the family of modern industrial societies. It is structurally isolated as it is not part of the wider system of kinship relations. Though there are relations with the kin groups, they are more of a matter of choice and not in the form of binding obligations. He proposed his theory of isolated nuclear families as an extension of his wider evolutionary theory of societies. As society undergoes a process of structural differentiation, new specialized institutions come up to perform many of the erstwhile functions of family. Parsons argued that there is a functional relationship between the isolated nuclear family and the economic system in the industrial societies. Isolated nuclear family evolves to meet the needs of a new economic system which requires a geographically mobile family. Family ceases to be an economic unit of production as production shifts to industries. In modern industrialized societies, status is achievement based and not ascription based. Isolated nuclear families are the best form of family structure for a society based on achieved statuses. Individuals are now judged on universalistic values. Parsons also goes on to define the roles of members in this isolated nuclear family. According to him, husbands or fathers play instrumental roles of bread earning, and wives or mothers play affectional role and rear children. Thus, according to him, though status outside the family is achieved one, it is ascribed one within the family. Due to structural isolation, the conjugal bond between husband and wife is strengthened is an isolated nuclear family. Although many functions and are now performed by specialized institutions, stabilization of personalities and some other basic irreducible functions are still performed by the family. Various other classifications of family have also been suggested, including the famous isolated nuclear family by Parsons. On the basis of volatility in the form of family, Anthony Giddens talks about serial monogamy in modern societies in which a person goes through multiple divorces or separations, followed by multiple marriages, and nuclear households are formed in succession. In wake of recognition of alternative sex orientations, family of choice has also emerged in the context of the members of the LGBT community. Similarly, cohabitation without marriage is now recognized as a form of legitimate family, and some countries also provide formal legal recognition to these new forms of families. For example, in 2010, Ireland enacted the Civil Partnership and Certain Rights and Obligations of Cohabitants Act to provide legal recognition as well as to provide some safeguards to cohabiting couples. There are many sociologists who contend that conclusions of Parsons are simplistic and are far from reality. Feminists argue that his branding of roles for male and female is prejudiced. Others, like William Good, argued that the growth of the nuclear family is not due to industrialization, but is a result of the ideology of the nuclear family itself. The degree of independence it affords and the premium that we put on it in modern Western societies has led to growth of nuclear families. There are many more in the world where industrial penetration is poor, but a high degree of nuclearization is there. It explains the ideological impact of the very notion of the nuclear family. Agni Litvak argued that isolated nuclear family is not a proper term to define the industrial family and instead modified extended family should be used, which is a coalition of nuclear families in a state of patriarchal dependency, that is, nuclear families still exchanging significant services with each other and not structurally isolated. Household family is a social unit based on kinship. Household is a brick and mortar dwelling unit. The household or gar is a residential and domestic unit composed of one or more persons living under the same roof and eating food cooked in the same kitchen or hearth or chala. Thus, emotional attachment is the core feature of a family, while commensality is the core feature of a household. Household and family may or may not mean the same thing for a given set of people. There can be different households for the same members of a family, as in case of husband and wife having occupations in different places and hence living in different households. There may be different families in the same household, as in the case of different families living in a single houses, tenants and landlords. There can also be institutional households, as in the case of hostels, dormitories, and hotels, and so on. There may also be houseless household, as in case of pavement dwellers. The household is a commensal and co-residence unit which may even take the form of a single person household. Kinship and residence rules distinguish between family and household. Classical scholars like Morgan, Maine, and Kroeber have looked at a family as a means to explain the evolution of human civilization and hence largely ignored its household dimension. Later, the idea of isolated nuclear family by Parsons, William Goode, etc., emphasized that nuclear family and household are inseparable from each other. But Anthony Giddens argued that phenomena like serial monogamy have led to the breakdown of the concept of family and household remains one and the same as different marriages bring different relations under a single roof. Further, the stay of members is more transitory than permanent. Occupational compulsion in a cosmopolitan culture have separated husband and wife who often live at different places in different households and meet only at weekends, giving rise to new concepts like weekend families, marriages. Household as a concept of social analysis is becoming more important because it also provides for internal division of labor among the members of the household and hence acts as a microeconomic unit as well. A household may undergo several changes with time from nuclear to joint, etc. In India, such transformation has been studied by A.M. Shah in Gujarat villages in his The Household Dimensions of the Family in India 1973. He has tried to make a conceptual difference between the household and family according to him. It is the family that is nuclear or joint. A household can be more aptly called as simple or complex. A household may experience progression or regression on the basis of birth, adoption, in and out marriage, death, divorce, and separation of members over a period of time. A household in itself is neither joint nor nuclear, but becomes either of these by virtue of being under progressive and regressive developmental phases. For example, in patrilineal society, when a married son moves out of his father's house, the process makes the son's house a separate nuclear household. This act may or may not simultaneously make his father's household a nuclear household, as the son may choose to retain relations with his paternal family. Household as a concept is under used for the residential grouping and family for such social groups which are related through kinship, emotional, ritual, and legal dimensions. Marriage. Marriage can be defined as a socially acknowledged and approved sexual union between two adult individuals. Classically, thinkers like Malinowski have defined it as marriage is a contract for the production and maintenance of children. Various other definitions and dimensions have also been suggested by other thinkers, which include dimensions like a socially accepted cohabitation, a legal and social contract, commitment, and so on. According to the Collins Dictionary of Sociology, marriage is a socially acknowledged and sometimes legally ratified union between an adult male and an adult female. The definition presupposes a heterosexual orientation of the two consenting adults in a marriage union. The modern sociological thinkers may no longer deem this definition as a valid one. This type of union is based on two objectives: sexual gratification and procreation with a socially sanctioned sex relationships and economic cooperation. Marriage is a legitimate and most accepted way of establishing the most fundamental social unit called family. It is also seen as functional terms as performing various societal functions. It gives social recognition to sexual relationships between a male and female and paves way for legitimate reproduction at societal level. Marriage provides members to society for its survival. Definitional approach to concepts like family, household, and marriage has its own issues as most of the definitions are either faulty or they don't cover all the attributes of such concepts. Contemporary trends in marriage have rendered many of the above definitional approaches defective. For example, marriage is no longer an affair concerned with adults of opposite sexes only. It is also no longer a mechanism for procreation only. Recognizing such limitations, Edmund Leach has commented that all universal definitions of marriage are vain. To overcome this limitation, many social scientists have tried an attributional approach. Edmund Leach has tried such an approach to explain marriage as a bundle of rights and responsibilities. He enumerated 10 rights, which includes both kinship rights and domestic rights. According to him, marriage provides an opportunity to legitimize the offspring. Procreation without marriage is still considered considered a taboo in most of the hitherto known societies till date. Marriage provides for socially approved access to sexuality, labor, and property of the spouse. Marriage provides for the establishment of a final relationship between persons and between groups. Marriage also confers various domestic rights and it serves as the basis of formation of household, division of labor, etc. in the family. Despite its limitations, the definitional approach has its own utility because definitions are often imperfect, but they still hold good for most of the sections of the society and provide at least a basic framework for understanding this evolving social institution. To overcome limitations of definitional and attributional approaches to marriage, we can classify various forms of marriages to gain clearer insights about this institution. There are various types of marriages, primarily based on the rules which govern marriage, like civil marriage and ritualistic marriage. Religious practices also influence family and marriage. In most societies, there are some rituals based on secular or religious ideas which govern the process of marriage. At the same time, most of the governments across the globe have also come up with specific legislation to permit or promote marriage beyond such ritualistic framework. For example, the Special Marriage Act 1954 in India provides for greater freedom to adults and they can marry as per their mutual consensus if they have crossed minimum age for marriage. Such legislations have also acted as tools of social reformation and have facilitated intercaste and interreligion marriage in India. They have also helped in breaking the orthodox traditions and values regarding rules of marriage. Incest taboo. It is a principle which disallows the establishment of sexual relationship with a close primary kin like father, mother, sister, brother, son, doctor, etc. In a more nonsense sense, it is an exogamous principle which is almost universally followed. Degree of prohibition may vary from culture to culture. In some groups, parallel cousin marriages are allowed, but in some they are not and are a taboo. Levi Strauss explains incest taboo as a way of creating wider social networks and relations. Others argued that it is biologically ingrained in humans and even in many animals also. Monogamy and polygamy. Today, monogamy is the most predominant form of marriage across societies. For example, the Muslim personal laws in most of the countries allow up to four wives for a man, but the instances of polygamous behavior are coming down. Polyandry is prevalent among some Himalayan tribes like Kinni of Himachal Pradesh, Sherpa of Nepal, Bhutia of Bhutan. But such instances of polyandry are also coming down. Many countries like the USA have banned polygamy as a matter of state policy. Endogamy and exogamy. These are two major principles that govern marriage in almost all societies around the world. In different societies, different rules of endogamy and exogamy are followed to various degrees. For example, in general, caste and religion endogamy are practiced all over India. In many parts of North India, a girl born within a village is considered the doctor of the village and hence cannot marry a boy from her own village. Apart from village exogamy, clan or gotra. Gotra literally means cow pen, a place where the cattle of the whole clan are kept. Exogamy is also practiced. Two other kinds of exogamy which have been prevalent among several Hindu communities in North and South India are Sagotra and Sapinda exogamy. Sapinda exogamy indicates the prohibition placed on the intermarriage between certain sets of relatives. Sapinda represents the relationship between the living members and their dead ancestors, and it is generally limited to a few generations. The term Sapinda literally means those who share the particles of the same body, or the people who are united by offering pinda or bowls of cooked rice at the same dead ancestor. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 precludes marriage within five generations on the father's side and three on the mother's side. Arranged marriage and love marriages. With modernization and individualization, romantic love is gaining more traction and instances of love marriages are increasing. It is not so that love so that love marriages are the byproduct of modernity. They existed earlier too. For example, Gandharva Vivah was a common form of love marriage during ancient India. Anuloma or hypergamy and pratiloma or hypogamy marriage is also classified on the basis of a status differential. Anuloma or hypergamy is a form of marriage in which the status of the groom is higher, and it is practiced in almost of India as a groom with higher status than that of a girl is desirable. This practice is also accused of promoting dowry as parents of boys put a price on their high status boy. Pratiloma or hypogamy are those marriages in which the status of a girl is higher. Instances of hypogamous marriages have been less common forms of marriage throughout history. Preferential marriage. Apart from the above mentioned universal forms, certain specific preference based marriages also take place. For example, cousin marriage, levirate, and sororate marriage. A levirate marriage is the one in which a woman marries one of her husband's brothers after her husband's death, if there were no children, in order to continue his line. Similarly, in sororate, the husband marries the sister of his wife after the death, infertility, etc., of his wife. Gazetteer of India 1965 has mentioned the prevalence of levirate alliances among the Ahir of Haryana, some Jat communities, and Girijan and several castes in Uttar Pradesh, etc. Similarly, cousin marriage is coming among Indian Muslims and even Hindus of South India. Remarriage. Remarriage is also taken as a separate classification as in case of widowhood and divorce or desertion. In modern societies like the USA and Russia, where divorce rates as of 2022 are as high as 49 and 65% respectively. Remarriages are a common phenomenon. Anthony Giddens called such marriages as serial monogamy. In some traditional conservative societies, female widows are not allowed to remarry. It was quite prevalent in caste Hindus till some time back, but this practice is slowly breaking down. As of 2022, divorce rate in India is just around 1%, and as a corollary, remarriage figures are also low and lower still because remarriage in India has its own challenges due to socio-cultural factors. Community specific marriages. Among the tribals, there are various forms of marriages like marriage by kidnapping, elopement, and forced marriage, and so on. In the UK, most of the marriages are neo-local, but in India, there are patrilocal. Further, every community may have different rules governing the marriages. For example, the Hindus traditionally had 8 forms of marriages like Gandharva marriage, Sikh marriage, etc. Similarly, Muslims and Christians also follow different forms of marriage. Apart from these types of marriage, several lesser known forms of marriages included working marriages, temporary marriages, forced marriages, and so on are also there. An interesting form of marriage is convenience marriage or sham marriage, which takes place to derive some benefits. For example, in the USA, to get a citizenship status, many people marry in records to get citizenship benefits as the spouse of a permanent American citizen. Different marriage taboos also govern marriage. Marriage with close blood relations is prohibited in North India, but such preferential marriages are allowed in some southern areas and among Muslims. Age difference is another taboo. Generally, females are lower in age, and age gap between the two is not very high. Change in forms of marriage is also occurring with changing times. Societies with the traditions of plural marriages are turning towards monogamy. Even in a Muslim country like Pakistan, legislations were introduced making it necessary for the Qazi to solemnize plural marriages only if the first wife gives her written consent. The trend towards monogamy has also been encouraged by the new idea of romantic love as the basis for marriage. Legislation has also played its role. The Special Marriage Act 1954 of India provides for secular marriages, interreligion marriages, etc. Similarly, the Hindu Marriage Act prohibits polygamy. Desire for symmetrical relations in marriage, as highlighted by Young and Wilmot. Need for dual employment of husband and wife, desire of women to participate in the workforce, etc., are factors that are now affecting martial relations. Another change observed by sociologists of urban areas is that the age of marriage is increasing and instances of child marriage are coming down. Instances of same sex marriages have gone up as many countries have provided legal recognition to such marriages, and the taboo associated with such marriages is diluting. According to James Neal, in his The Origins and Role of Same Sex Relations in Human Societies 2009, such marriages have existed historically also, but in more subtle forms. The legal recognition in something which is a recent phenomenon. As of 2022, around 30 countries allow same sex marriages. Some negative trends and problems with marriage have also been noticed. India socialist Iravati Karve in her study found that dowry was becoming more entrenched and prices of groom were increasing with growing education. Hypergamy has also helped in perpetuating the notion of inferiority of women. Child marriage is still practiced in some parts of India, especially among the Rajputs of Rajasthan and in states like Bihar. Polygamy is also prevalent among Muslims and many tribes of India despite it being outlawed for all other communities. With the breakdown of traditional values, individualization and legal reforms, instances of divorce and marital breakdowns are also increasing. Marriage as an institution also has its critics as well. Feminists view marriage as an institution promotion patriarchy. According to Tanya Evans in her Women, Marriage and the Family 2005, women are considered as a property of their husband. Jane Hardesty in her marriage as a cure for her poverty. 2008 argued that marriage is a propaganda spread by the state and other social institutions as a cure of all mal- maladies. Some sociologists also cite dysfunctional aspects like martial rapes, violence, and dowry, and so on as the counter arguments against the institutions of marriage. Lineage and descent. Apart from family, an individual is also a member of a number of other kin groups based upon a system of blood relations, marriage, rituals, or other obligations. Such kinship groups are organized on the basis of certain principles, out of which lineage and descent are the major one. The two are interrelated to the extent that sometimes the two terms are even used interchangeably, but have some subtle differences. Lineage literally means a line, and hence it has to do with how a line of inheritance or nomenclature or identifications is drawn. Descent literally means coming down, so it deals with founding ancestors, real or imaginary, and the manner in which progenies trace themselves to such founding ancestors in a downward fashion, which can be linear, that is, defined by lineage or by using some other principle. We will now discuss these two concepts in slightly more detail. Lineage. Lineage is understood in two broad terms. First, as a principle on the basis of which a ligament or inheritance is chosen in a linear fashion. Such an arrangement is called a line or lineage, called a Vanshavali. Vamshavali in traditional Indian system. It is descendant in a line from a common progenitor. Most common forms of lineage are patrilineage and matrilineage. It gives rise to descent groups which are linear in character. In other sense, lineage also refers to a particular type of kin group called Gotra in traditional Indian system, in which members have a common ancestor whose identity is known and who is generally considered as the founder of the group. In lineage, the common ancestor of lineage members is usually an actual remembered person, unlike in the case of clan, where it is more likely to be a mythological figure. Among North Indian Hindus, there is a unique system of maintaining such genealogical record dating back to as far as 12th century by the Brahmin Pandits known locally as Pandas at various places like Haridwar, Garganga, etc. Descent and lineage are often used interchangeably in conjunction to mean similar concepts while discussing kinship. Descent literally means coming down, and it is the principle whereby a person is socially or by bloodline affiliated with the group of his or her parents, grandparents, and so on in a top down manner. The individual belongs simultaneously to several descent groups, those of the two parents, the four grandparents, and the eight great grandparents, and so on. If the chain is not limited, decent principles will virtually connect everyone in this world into a single decent group. However, in reality, some restrictions are placed to limit the size of the decent group. Sometimes a remember known ancestor can be the cutoff, as in case of lineage, and sometimes it can be in the form of some other symbol as well. Descent can also be traced to some mythological figure as well. For example, many Brahmins in India trace their descent to the mythological sages like Vasishta. Hence, descent is a method of limiting the recognition of kin groups on the basis of some common identity, and in different societies, different principles might be used. In case of lineage, one can trace one's ancestors, whereas in case of a descent, one often fails to trace one's ancestors, and the ancestor could be substituted by a mythical one symbolizing the origin of one's descent. There are many possible avenues for the transmission of descent group members membership from parents to children. These are unlinear descent. In this type, descent is renoked through a single line, and it is predefined for an individual to which decent group will one belong. This system is followed in most parts of India. It may have further two classifications with patrilineal, where descent is traced in the male line from father to son, and matrilineal, where descent is traced in the female line from mother to doctor and so on. Double or bilineal descent, where descent is traced in both the father's line as well as mother's line for different attributes such as movable property in one line and immovable in another and surnames in another, etc. It is a very uncommon system and found very rarely. Ambilineal or cognatic descent. Ambilineal rule affiliates an individual with a kinsman through the father's or mother's line. Some people in societies that practice this system affiliate with a group of relatives through their fathers and others through their mothers. The individual can choose which side he or she wants to affiliate to. The Semans of the South Pacific are an excellent example of an ambilineal society, but like a bilineal type descent, this type of descent is also rare. Parallel descent. It is a very rare form of descent where descent lines are sex specific. Men transmit to their sons while women to their daughters. Cross or alternative descent. It is also a very rare form of descent where men transmit to their daughters and women to their sons. On the basis of above principles of descent, descent groups are formed which can be of various types. Most common is family, which is also the smallest descent group. A number of families which are linked by a common ancestor, whose identity is known, form a group called lineage. A number of lineages linked together with a common ancestor whose identity is not known is called clan or roughly equivalent to Gotra in case of India, and it is exogamous. A number of clans having a common mythical ancestor form a Pratri, and it is an endogamous group. Pratri is sometimes equated with caste in India. Descent groups are also linked with various functions they perform at various life events. They perform certain rituals on the occasions like birth, marriage, etc. Lineage and kinship are instrumental in defining the identity of a person, and descent groups are used to distinguish between insiders and outsiders. In earlier times, according to Evans Pritchard, kinship groups could convert into war groups also. The descent group will have a built in authority structure with a power normally exercised by senior males or females, depending upon the type of descent principle that descent group follows. Often, rules of inheritance and property rights also tend to be in line with the reknocking of descent in most societies. In traditional societies, an individual's economic rights and responsibilities are defined by his or her position in the descent group. In many societies, unlineal descent groups are also jural units internally deciding their own disputes and externally acting as a unified group in the conduct of feuds, fights, etc. Patriarchy and the sexual division of labor. Gender and sex are two similar sounding words but have different meanings. While sex is a biological phenomenon, gender is a social phenomenon, and it refers to the identification of human psychologically and socially as women, men, and other third genders. Because gender is a socially constructed category, we are behaving as men or women rather than being men or women. Different sexes and genders are not placed equally in societies, and the differential power structures give rise to phenomena like patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system in which males have unequal power and authority within and outside families, and this arrangement puts women at a disadvantage. Sylvia Walby on patriarchy. According to her, the concept of patriarchy remains central to feminist understanding of society. And there are six patriarchal structures that undermine position of women in society. First, women have been historically discriminated against in paid jobs. Second, within the household, her labor is unpaid and unrewarding. Third, local cultures promote sex specific roles to the disadvantage of women. Fourth, women are subordinated sexually also, and there are more limitations on women when it comes to sexual freedom. Fifth, violence is often used as a means of overpowering women by men. Finally, the state institutions have also taken a patriarchal view. Patriarchy is defined by Sylvia Walby in her Theorizing Patriarchy 1990 as a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate and oppress women. According to her, patriarchy operates through multiple structures like production relations in the household where woman is subjected to unpaid labor, discriminatory allocation of occupations in the labor market, capture of political power by patriarchs, male violence which is often patterned and systematic, patriarchal relations in sexuality which are manifested in sexual double standards for males and females, patriarchal cultural institutions like education, media, and so on. Walby distinguishes patriarchy as private patriarchy, which is practiced in households, and public patriarchy, which is the collective response of a patriarchal society to women. Patriarchy is reflected within family as well as in wider society at manifest as well as latent level. Within family, authority structure, inheritance rights, and other entitlements, rituals, divisions of labor reflected. In society, gender discrimination, division of labor, some jobs are now stereotyped as women's job and other as men's job. Physical and sexual violence against women, etc., reflected. For example, in India, after schooling, girls are more likely to be sent for medical education than for engineering streams like mechanical engineering, as mechanical is considered as a boys' thing. According to the annual status of higher education in states and union territories in India report 2019, there is a distinctive gender pattern among various courses across the states. In Indian society, patriarchy as a social institution gives rise to other social values such as male child preference, sexual purity, monogamy, fasting by women, abstinence of women from public discourse, and so on. Many sociologists are of the view that in a primitive society where man lived in a state of nature, there existed a primitive matriarchal system. As mankind evolved, the changed mode of production demanded specialization of labor in which men done the roles of bread earners. Thus, the economic system shaped patriarchy. Sexual division of labor refers to the process of dividing work between different people on the basis of their sexual sex and gender on the basis of sexist ideological thinking. It is the most basic form of division of labor which has been in existence since time immemorial. Sociologists have tried to use different theoretical frameworks to explain the existence of sexual division of labor in almost all hitherto known societies. Basically, there are two broad approaches which deal with the question of sexual division of labor: biological approach and social cultural approach. Various theoretical perspectives have been offered on the origin of patriarchy as well as sexual division of labor. Biological theories by Lionel Tiger and Robin Fox, Murdoch and Parsons have attributed for various reasons. Sexual division of labor on biological factors. Tiger and Fox in their The Imperial Animal. 1972 gave the concept of human biogrammar to explain biological basis of sexual division of labor. According to them, biogrammar is like a genetic program which has been developed due to the fact that man has spent 99.9% of his time as hunter gatherer, and as a result, man is more aggressive and dominant. Women are programmed by their biogrammar to reproduce and take care of children. Reproduction is considered as a role of women and production as role of men, and implication of patriarchy on various forms of entitles is now a part of social life. Parsons called such different roles as instrumental and expressive roles of a husband and wife. George Peter Murdoch, in his book Social Structure, 1949, argued that biological differences like the greater physical strength of men and the fact that women bear children led to gender roles sheer out of practicality.
Given the biological differences between men and women, sexual division is a most effective way of division of labor in society. Housewife. Feminist sociologist Anne Oakley, Oakley in her Housewife 1974 has vociferously rejected biological theories and has argued through empirical evidences that sexual division of labor has a strong cultural basis. According to her, sex is natural or biological, but gender is cultural construct and it assigns different social roles for both genders. Differential rewards are attached to these roles, which create gender inequalities and gender stratification. She cites numerous examples in which women take stereotypical and so called masculine roles. According to her, pre industrial society had equal space for both men and women in all kinds of work. It was only during industrialization that such changes were brought that woman was branded on branded as housewife. Housewife role, according to Oakley, has the following characteristics. It is exclusively for women and dependent on men. It has the status of non-work compared to real economic productive work of men. Housework is unpaid, privatized, and isolated. She cited examples in which women are also performing tasks which are labeled as tasks of men. Women in many Latin American countries work in mines. She also cites how keyboards play the role of keyboards play the role of mothers as alternatives. Bruno Bettelheim, in his study of keyboards, highlighted that a close, continuous mother-child relation is not essential for effective socialization. Role of women in marriage and family also follows a broader division of labor. According to Jessie Bernard in her The Future of Marriage, 1976, benefits that a husband and wife draw from the marriage are radically different or unequal. Compared to single men, married men are likely to have more successful careers. But compared to single women, wives are more likely to suffer depressions. In marriages, it is the wife which makes adjustment and conforms to the wishes of the husband. American sociologist Early Hochschild in her The Second Shift 1989 argued that employed women are doubly harassed by men, one during their first shift at their workplace and the second in their second shift in the form of housework. According to Wayangu, as women move into paid employment in increasingly larger numbers, men's contribution to domestic tasks and childcare does not seem to be increasing at the same pace. Today, it is broadly acknowledged that the sexual division of labor is social, cultural in nature and not biological. Historically, men have been considered breadwinners and women as housekeepers and raise children. This arrangement used to be considered as natural. The ideology of naturalness of a division of labor has been challenged as women started entering the labor force in large numbers. The rise of feminist movement in the West, especially since the 1970s women liberation movement, raised questions about sexual division of labor and almost universal subordination of women across societies and cultures. Many empirical researchers in the nature and causes of sexual division of labor have proved that women and men are equally capable of doing almost all types of works. Cordelia Fine, in her Delusions of Gender 2010, argued that men and women are not hardwired, hardwired naturally with different interests and capabilities, and instead, cultural and societal beliefs contribute to sex differences. According to her, gender is recycled in a highly gendered society in which children subconsciously learn gender role. In Indian context, caste is viewed by feminists as a patriarchal institution across the caste. The role of women is of a worker. Together with religion, caste defines sexual division of labor in Indian society. According to Uma Chakravarti, Brahmanical traditions glorify obedient women as pativrata or loyal to husband and hence put a veil on gender discrimination. Patriarchal legitimates motherhood as the primary role of women. In Indian society, patriarchy as a social institution gives rise to other social values such as male child preference, sexual purity, and monogamy, and so on. While her status on one hand is of Devi or goddess in scriptures, she is given treatment of Dasi or slave. Veena Das calls it the Devi dichotomy. dichotomy. Fortunately, the patriarchal system, with its unlimited restrictions on women and its comparative freedom for men, is gradually breaking down under the impact of new civilization and cultural values. Earnings of a husband are gradually proving to be insufficient for the upbringing of the whole family, especially in the case of the Middle East middle class. Traditional masculine jobs are now taken by women also. For example, a combat role in armed forces, considered as one of the toughest occupations, is now open for women as well in most of the countries. In 2016, the President of India announced that women will be recruited in combat roles in all the three armed forces. In 2021, India got its first batch of women soldiers when 83 of them were inducted in the Corps of Military Police, and in the same year it was announced that women shall be inducted in the prestigious National Defence Academy. As the hold of religion weakens, accompanying notions like Stri Dharma, Pativrata, and so on are also weakening. Romantic love is the new basis for marriages, and modern industrial and service economies promote participation of women and gender balance in the workforce. As functional roles of family are changing, relations of members are also getting affected. Occupations which were once branded males only are now lapped up by women as well. The Constitution of India also prohibits sexual division of labor or on discriminatory terms, and laws like the Factories Act provide for equal treatment of men and women at the workplace. Skep- Skeptics, skeptics, on the other hand, argue that such laws have brought theoretical liberation but not actual emancipation of women. Contemporary trends in kinship patterns, family, and marriage. Contemporary trends in kinship patterns can be viewed in terms of changing structure and functions of kinship groups and patterns of relationships between them. Many of the changes are brought about by the newly emerging bureaucratic organizations, individualization, migration, education, nuclearization of family, and so on. Another factor that has contributed immensely toward change in the function and structure of the family is the arrival of modern contraceptive contraceptive methods. It has helped in limiting the size of the family on the one hand and improving the choice of women on the other hand. Birth control gives more freedom to women, limits the size of family, and in many cases also leads to many psychological and behavioral issues among other family members as individualism grows with the small family size. In structural terms, nuclear family, decline of patriarchal relations, weaning authority of parents over children, rise of alternative kinship institutions like live-ins, influence of social media on kinship bonds are emerging contemporary trend. Functional aspects of kinship relations are also changing. Various functions of family and other descent groups are taken over by alternative institutions. Placement function is no longer performed by family and it is done by other economic organization. Similarly, jural rights of kin groups are taken away by formal judicial institutions. Education functions are performed by schools now. Civil marriage has replaced rituals in many cases. Cases of breakdown, marital breakdown, divorce, and separation are increasing across the world. Incidences of domestic violence are also increasing. Community bonds or kinship bonds are weakening, and there are lesser avenues to vent out pent up frustrations, leading to distress in marital life, leading to marital breakdowns as well.
Marital breakdown can be divided into three categories: divorce, separation, and empty shell marriage. Divorce is legal termination of marriage, while separation is physical separation without legal recognition. Empty shell marriages are those in which the spouses live together but only for the sake of living together and marriage remains in name only. Marital breakdowns in post industrialized society are on a rise due to various contributing factors. Today, it is easy to get divorced due to legislative reforms and enforcement of a uniform civil code in most of the developed countries. For example, after the enactment of new divorce law in the USA in 1971, divorce cases suddenly saw a major spurt. According to Nikki Hart in her When Marriage Ends, 1976, opportunities to escape marriage are more today. Divorce is no longer a social stigma. According to Fletcher, over acceptations in marital relations are leading to breakdowns. People expect and demand more from marriage and consequently are more likely to end a relationship which may have survived in the past. According to William Goode, in his A Sociological Perspective on Marital Breakdown, Marital Breakdown 1971, nuclear families today exist in relative isolation from the wider kinship network, and families carry a heavier emotional burden. And as a consequence, family as a social unit has become more fragile. In an industrial society, family performs fewer functions, and as a result, there are fewer bonds to unite. Life is becoming more and more secular. Marriage is no longer sacrament in traditional societies like India. Studies also indicate that the divorce rates are high if both spouses are from different backgrounds, as reinforcing mechanisms are weak. The wives are encouraged to work, they are also expected to perform their traditional roles as well, and it often leads to conflicts. Instances of marital breakdown are culture and context specific as well. In the USA, as per 2022 data, on an average, around 50% of marriages ended up in divorce in the past 5 years. On the other end of the spectrum, certain societies put a higher premium on marriage. For example, in India, divorce rate continues to remain very low at around 1% of as of 2022. But even in India, instances of divorce per thousand persons have increased as compared to the last decade. Instances of breakdown also vary across the strata of class. In her study of American society, Nikki Hart observed that there is an inverse relation between income and breakdowns, as low income places a heavier strain on relationships. An inverse relation is also found in the age at marriage and divorce. Lower the age at marriage, higher the chances of breakups, as wages may be low at young ages and financial strains may lead to breakup of marriages. Status of parents also affects the married life of children. If any of the spouses had parents which are divorced, it increases the chances of a split of married children as well. Nikki Hart argues that experience of having divorced parents reduces the aversion to divorce. Studied by T. Noble have shown that the divorce rate is more in certain occupations like actors, lorry drivers, authors, etc. According to William Goode, if the spouses are from different ethnic and social backgrounds, chances of divorce are increased. Implications of a marital breakdown are manifested in terms of impact on family, kin, and society. In his book Origins of Depression, 1978, George Brown found that it is one of the most stressful moments in an individual's life. Single parenthood is on the rise and family as a social institution is threatened. In Britain, there were 7% children who had single parents in 1972, and this figure rose to 14.7% in 2020. It also means that social functions of the family are threatened. Divorce is also leading to separate homes and doubling of resources requirements. Marital breakdowns create a general feeling that the integration of society as a whole is affected. But in spite of welfare measures like
family allowances, old age pensions, health security, and so on by states across the world has also greatly helped the family in tiding over the challenges posed by the forces of change. Indicative questions with answers. Patriarchy remains a crude reality even in modern societies. Comment. Gender equality is a constitutional and legal prescription in most modern democracies. The very concept of democracy is based on equality of all, but the ground culture reality is different from legal prescriptions. Across the world, men still hold the majority of positions of power. For example, in the power allied framework of C.W. Mills, in politics, corporations, and the military, men dominate the top positions. As of 2021, just 8% of women were CEOs of the top Fortune 500 companies. Even a highly developed country like the USA couldn't have a female president in hundreds of years. Existence of a patriarchy in modern societies is cultural as well as ideological and can be explained by Mead's framework of socialization, whereby both men and women learn patriarchal behavior through a process of social interaction. Men learn to be men, and women learn to be women, and gender identities harden in the process of socialization. Patriarchy is reflected within family as well as in wider society, at manifest as well as at a latent level. Within family authority structure, inheritance rights and other entitlements, rituals, work division, etc. reflected. In larger society, gender discrimination, division of labor, physical and sexual violence against women, etc., reflected. Patriarchy persists in modern societies because it operates through multiple structures like production, relation in the household where whom women are household where women are subjected to unpaid labor, discriminatory allocation of occupations in the labor market, capture of political power by patriarchs, male violence, which is often patterned and systematic, patriarchal relations in sexuality, which are manifested in sexual double standards for males and females, patriarchal culture institutions like education, media, and so on. Patriarchy operates both in private as well as public spheres. Gender roles are promoted by parents and society willingly and unwillingly right from the birth of a child, and this makes abolition of patriarchal institutions a difficult task in modern societies. Taking example from India, patriarchy is reflected in the adverse sex ratio and according to the annual status of higher education in states and duties in India report 2019, there is a distinctive gender pattern among various courses across the state. Cultural notions like Pativrata Nari further strengthen patriarchal notions which are equally accepted by both men and women. Even in modern societies, justifications in the form of biological or cultural factors often try to legitimize the patriarchy. Depth of such justifications can be estimated from the fact that even many sociologists like Lionel Tiger and Robin Fox, Murdoch, Parsons, etc., try to attribute gender roles to biological factors. The ideology of naturalness of division of labor has been changed as women started entering the labor force in large numbers, but still millennium old cultural traditions are resisting the modernizing forces. As a result, patriarchal forces manifest themselves and on various occasions, even in modern societies, the winds of changes are also there.
Is family a functionally indispensable social unit? Comment. Some Marxists and feminists are particularly critical of the very concept of family as a functional unit. Sorry, family as a social institution has existed in all hitherto known societies since time immemorial, and this has led some sociologists to conclude that it is a functionally indispensable social unit in society. George Murdoch enlisted four universal functions which serve to resolve four major problems of society: regulating sexual relations, controlling reproduction as accounting for economic survival and socialization of children. Similarly, Parsons also enumerated certain basic and irreducible functions of family. But this functionalist perspective has come under legitimacy crisis in contemporary societies where commonly agreed functions of family are now performed by alternate institutions like schools, industries, old age homes, hospitals, and so on. Some Marxists and feminists are particularly critical of the very concept of family as a functional unit. According to Marxist scholars like Friedrich Engels, family in modern society served the function of perpetuating transmission of private property and hence perpetuating class inequalities. Thus, the modern form of family is actually dysfunctional for social harmony. Similarly, feminists argue that family perpetuates gender stereotypes. Family denies an individual freedom and is a hindrance in the development of an individual self. Edmund Leach argued that the modern family is isolated from larger society and kin and it is a storehouse of stress and tension. Instead of acting as an indispensable social unit, family turns dysfunctional in many instances. Overregulation of members creates strain in family, leading to breakdowns in family. For example, in countries like the USA, marital breakdowns account for as much as 50% of total marriages. Today, family is no longer the primary institution to enforce social control. With the rise of the modern welfare state, social control is now lying in the hands of law and order maintaining institutions. Today, secondary functions of family are performed by bureaucratic organizations. Modern division of labor has facilitated numerous avenues of employment and family has lost its placement function. With all said and done, family as a social institution has undergone changes in its form and functions, but it's still irreplaceable when it comes to reproduction, rearing of children, and providing emotional support. Ronald Fletcher argued that functions of family have not decreased significantly as a result of industrialization, as it is often claimed, with increasing scope of social life, health, physical education, media, etc., the role of parents has in fact increased, while some manifest functions of a family might have decreased. Latent functions of family may have increased and family as a social unit remains relevant even today. To cap it all, family still performs the function of a primary socialization which is the fountainhead of all social systems. Practice questions. Some statistics highlight that as much as 60% of marriages end in divorces in some Western countries, and there is an increasing trend in India also. Does it imply that marriages have has outlived its utility? How is a household different from a family? Why is there an increasing shift in focus towards household? Family has both functions and dysfunctions. What factors have determined its long existence? What are the various alternatives to family? What are the factors that have affected the form, functions, and structure of family? How has globalization and industrialization affected the structure of family? Do you agree with the statement that Indian society is patriarchal in nature? What are the factors which have contributed towards such behavior? Explain the term sexual division of labor. What are various other bases of division of labor in society? Is the nuclear family a historical factor, a recent phenomenon? What factors have contributed towards its growth or decline? Compare and contrast the structure of a typical Indian and European family. What are the various functions that decent groups perform? How have modern bureaucratic institutions replaced some of these functions? Family performs certain basic and irreducible functions. Discuss the validity of this statement in light of the functional approach of Parsons. What changes have the current of social changes brought to the status of women in a family system? Give some examples from both urban and rural areas. Differentiate between the terms matriarchal system and matrilineal system. Do such systems exist in India? Is male authority absent in matriarchal society? Kinship and alliances are two primary means of formation of kinship. How do they work in northern India? Is they are is there any other basis of kinship formation apart from these two? Are the new forms of family live like living a sign of a decline of the traditional forms of family? How is sex different from genders? Elucidate the difference in light of the transgenders and homosexuals and the related legitimacy issues in India. Thank you.